Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So we've talked about Formula One in my first few videos, but I'm also passionate about IndyCar, so I want to look at their history as well from time to time. Today I decided we could take a look back at the 1994 Michigan 500. Now, the race didn't feature a classic finish or anything like that, but it was a race of very high attrition, leaving just 8 cars running at the end, and over half of them had something in common. But before getting further into it though, if you enjoyed the video, then please give it a like and share the video, and if you want to see more similar content, then subscribe to the channel. To start off, let's take a brief background of the 1994 kart season going into the race. The Michigan 500 was round 10 of 16 that year, and up to that point, the season had been dominated by Team Penske, headed by Al Unser Jr. and his teammates Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy. The team had won 7 of the 9 races that had already been run that year, with the most famous being the Indianapolis 500 with their pushrod engine, and Michael Andretti, who was driving for Chip Ganassi Racing, was the only driver who had defeated Penske on the season so far. Penske started off the weekend by having one of their worst qualifying sessions of the year, with Fittipaldi being the best of the three in 7th, Tracy in 11th, and Unser in 14th, and it was Nigel Mansell who would take his 3rd pole of the year ahead of Raul Boesel and Michael Andretti. At this point in 1994, Mansell had already dabbled with a return to Formula One with Williams, having raced with them in France, and his IndyCar results were not as strong as they were in his championship-winning season in 1993. With a powerful Ford Cosworth engine, though, perhaps Michigan was the race he needed to be back on top. Mansell did indeed take off at the start, being the dominant car early on, leading the first 26 laps of the 250-lap race. The dominance wouldn't last long, though, as he suffered from a stuck throttle, which he called the scariest moment in his career, and he would eventually retire from the race, taking him out as a contender for the win. This would start to develop as a theme in the afternoon. Michael Andretti took over the lead and held it through lap 66, but then a yellow came out. Michael was in a group of lap cars, and he didn't notice the yellow initially while the lap cars did, causing him to take evasive action to avoid them, and instead ended up in the wall and had to retire from the race. For the next 150 laps or so, the lead shifted mostly between Unser and Boesel, with Unser looking to maintain Penske's dominance on the year, while Boesel was looking for his first career IndyCar win. During this time, though, other drivers that were main contenders on the year had retired from the race, such as Jacques Villeneuve, Paul Tracy, and Mario Andretti, who was competing in his last 500-mile race. With 50 laps to go, there were just 11 of the 28 starters left in the race, with Unser, Boesel, and Fittipaldi left as the only ones on the lead lap, and it looked like one of them would win. However, on lap 209, Fittipaldi lost his engine, taking him out of contention, and then on lap 225, Boesel lost his engine as well while leading, which put Unser in commanding position of the race. With a lead of over a lap, Unser just had to finish the race to take another win on the season. Just 6 laps later, though, Unser lost his engine as well. This put the unlikely Scott Goodyear in the lead. Goodyear was able to hold on and lead the final 20 laps to take a second career win, with his first coming at Michigan 2 years prior by a lap over Arie Luyendyk. The other 7 cars running at the time were able to make it home as well without much drama in the final 20 laps. If you go through these drivers that finished, though, pretty much all of them had extraordinary results. Let's dive a bit deeper into this. Scott Goodyear raced in kart from 1987 to 1996, winning 2 times total, and the win obviously matched his career best result, and it would also be the only win for his team King Racing. King Racing, which was owned by NHRA legend Kenny Bernstein, only competed full-time in 1993 and 1994, along with a few additional races from 1988 to 1992, and Goodyear was their only full-time driver in 94. The season was not a strong one for Goodyear or the team, with them fighting just to get in the top 10 most of the year, and their only other top 5 coming with a 4th in Vancouver. By this point of the season, the team's troubles were also not only taking their toll on the track. Goodyear had informed the team that he would not be taking up the option on his contract for 95, and Bernstein had been told that title sponsor Budweiser would not be returning to the team after the season's end. Unfortunately for Bernstein, the result would not be good enough to save the team. However, this fantastic result almost never happened. Goodyear had been running strong for most of the race, but on lap 170, he ran out of fuel exiting turn 2, but was able to coast to the pits, and the team was fortunately able to get his car refired. The whole sequence lost him 2 laps, so pretty much any other day that would have killed a chance at a win, but on a day of high attrition, he was still able to recover for the win. Behind Goodyear was experienced driver Arie Luyendyk, who raced in kart from 1984 to 1997, winning 3 times, most famously at the 1990 Indianapolis 500. Luyendyk had been strong on super speedways over the years, so a second at Michigan was not necessarily the most surprising result for him, but it was for the team he was driving for. In 1994, Luyendyk drove for Indy Regency Racing, which is a relatively new team that joined midway through 1993, and up to this race, their best result was an 11th by Luyendyk at Long Beach earlier that year. Luyendyk did give him 2 sixth-place finishes later that year in Vancouver and Laguna Seca, but the team shut down full-time at the end of 1994, and this would be their only ever top-5 finish. They also resurfaced part-time in the IRL in the early 2000s for a few years, but did not produce any significant results. The final podium position that day went to Dominic Dobson for PacWest Racing. Dobson had competed in kart sporadically since 1985, but 1994 would be his only full-time season. To date, his best career finish was a 7th at Detroit in 1989, so the third gave him a career best finish and an only podium, but he would also manage to finish 6th at Loudon just 2 races later. The race was also the first podium for PacWest, who would go on to be relatively successful in the late 90s. Teo Fabi finished 4th, and among the 8 finishers, he's the only one I don't know much to say about, other than the finish was equal to his season best, which he would achieve 2 other times that year. The 5th place finisher was Mark Smith, who raced in kart in 1993 and 1994, and was most famous for failing to qualify for the Indy 500 either year, adding to the curse of the Smiths, in which no driver with the last name of Smith has ever qualified for the race. Heading into this race, he had yet to score a point on the season, and only had a career best finish of 9th at Phoenix in 1993. He would add an 8th at Vancouver a few races later, but the 5th remained a career best finish. Hiro Matsushita, who was a famous backmarker that competed in kart from 1990 to 1998, was the next finisher in 6th. To date, he had never finished higher than 10th, which he had done 3 times, so the 6th was a fantastic result for him, and the best finish for the remainder of his career was 9th, which he achieved at Michigan 3 years later in 1897, making him another driver with a career best finish. The 7th place finisher was Willie T. Ribbs, and while he did have a 6th back in Denver in 1991, he had never had another finish better than 10th to date. His kart career came to a close at the end of 1994, but he did at least add another 10th place finish at Loudon later that year. The final car that finished the race was not actually classified with an 8th place finish, but instead an 11th, as he only completed 195 laps after running into troubles, which was fewer than retirees Andre Boisel and Fittipaldi. That driver was Marco Greco, who raced in kart from 1993 to 1996, and heading into this race, his career best finish was an 11th at Phoenix in 1893, meaning he matched that and also scored his only points of the season. He would match that 11th again at Portland in 1895, but will remain equal to his best career finish in kart. He did, however, race in the IRL for a few years and put in quite a few top 10 finishes there, including a 3rd at Dover in 1898. After going through all the 8 finishers, 5 of these 8 drivers had what was at least equal to their career best finish, and 2 of the teams King Racing and Indy Regency Racing achieved their best ever result. On top of that, all 8 drivers had what was their season best finish, with Fabi being the only one that was able to match that during the year. As far as the drivers that retired, Boisel would have been in prime position for a win had he finished, which could have been the only one of his career after coming close on a few other occasions, and the only one for his team Dick Simon Racing as well. Instead, he had another disappointing result and became the driver with the most career IndyCar starts that never won a race. So there you go. Like I said at the start, I don't really consider this to be a classic race with how it played out at the end, but I did find it to be a statistical quirk with how many drivers achieved their career best finishes and how all the finishers had a season best finish that day. Let me know if you like seeing the IndyCar content and also if you have any memories watching this race. Thanks for watching.